Hi Year 11, this video is an introduction to studying English Literature A-Level. In this video I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the course, telling you a bit more about the text that you're going to study and the skills that you'd acquire across the 2 years. So what does the course look like? So you'll see immediately then that the course is divided into two separate parts taught by two different teachers. This here is what you will study in Year 12. So if we look first at the text taught by Teacher A, you'll see that it's called tragedy. So tragedy is the genre of all of the texts here that you'll study, and in the paper itself you'll be expected to make links to tragedy. So going here then, in term 1A, so that's just the first few weeks of the first term, you'll do an introduction, a unit called the Introduction to Tragedy, and that will provide you with a bit of history, background to tragedy and different aspects, and just really equip you with the basis that you need to go on and study out other tragic texts. So in the rest of that term, and then up until Christmas, so up until the end of term 2, you'll be studying Shakespeare's Othello. Then in terms 3 and 4, you'll study Keats' poetry and Death of a Salesman. These are taught close together, one after the other. These you write about at the same time. So in section C of your paper 1, you'll write one essay on both the Keats poetry and the Death of a Salesman. And then in terms 5 and 6, you'll come back to Othello, as well as doing some revision. In term 6, you have your Year 12 mocks at the very end of the year, so it's sort of Othello and recapping on everything you've studied there. So on the other side of the course then, Teacher B, it's for paper 2, and it's political and social protest. That's the genre of text you're studying here. So in terms 1 and 2A, so taking just up over that first half term, you'll study The Kite Runner. In terms 2B and 3, so taking you up to February, you'll study The Handmaid's Tale. Then in terms 4, 5, you'll study Blake's poetry, and 6 will be a kind of combination of all of those texts as you revise for your mocks. Let's look in a little bit more detail. Before we do, just very quickly to mention Year 13. What will I study in Year 13? I won't talk about it a lot, it's a long way off, but with Teacher A in terms 1 and 2, you'll do your NEA, or your non-examined assessment coursework basically, and revision of all the texts you studied interleaved, and then following on in terms 3 and 4, you'll do more interleaved revision and exam skills. Similar on the other side then, you will in term 1 be studying the court for your coursework. In term 2 you'll be analysing the unseen text, so that will be the kind of only new bit of content really in term 2 there in terms of exam. And then in terms 3 to 6, again it will be interleaved revision and exam skills. Oops, hang on. Sorry. Okay, here we go then. So, Introduction to Tragedy. This is taught by Teacher A. So this unit will give you further insight into the genre of tragedy, building on your knowledge from GCSE. So obviously in your study of Macbeth you looked a little bit at Shakespearean tragedy, and this unit is designed to give you more breadth and more understanding, both of the history and of how tragedy looks different in each era. So, you know, it's a fascinating one, the genre of tragedy. It dates back to the ancient Greeks, and we'll sort of start off there, looking at a bit of ancient Greek tragedy, then move forward. It follows us in one form or another throughout history, all the way up to the present day, and Death of a Salesman is your sort of 20th century play in the tragic genre. Getting to grips with the various forms and aspects associated with the genre will provide you with a solid basis for the paper one side of the course. So you just really need to kind of get to grips, get that kind of basic understanding of tragedy to help you with all of the other bits of taught by Teacher A, which is why we do this unit first. You'll then go on to study Othello. Othello is a fantastic play, a tale of love destroyed by jealousy. In studying this tragedy, you will explore themes of racial prejudice, manipulation, and jealousy. Here we go. Let's go back. You will answer 2 questions on Othello in your final exams. So your paper 1, 2/3 of it is taken up by Othello. One question will be based on an extract, so similar to the Macbeth question that you're expecting at GCSE. The other one will be an essay-based or theme or character question. So we'll look now at this side. So, The Kite Runner and The Handmaid's Tale, taught terms 1 to 3. So in both of these novels, the authors, Khaled Hosseini and Margaret Atwood, confront and criticise certain aspects of the societies that they write about. They focus on social and political inequalities that are inherent not just in their novels, but in their wider world. The exploration of these novels is similar to GCSE in that you'll be analysing the methods that the authors use to communicate their ideas. Unlike the GCSE, this is not an extract question, so you have the freedom to focus on any part of the text you feel appropriate to your argument. It is also an open book exam, so while you don't have to memorise lots of quotations, the examiners expect precision in your responses. So you can see the way that it's just beginning to shift away, change slightly from GCSE, expecting something quite a little bit different. So let's move forward then. The poetry of John Keats. So he was an English romantic poet. His poetry was characterised by a style heavily loaded with sensualities. He accentuates the extreme emotion in his poems and his master of creating tragic settings. In this unit, you will explore 4 of his longer poems. The style of analysis is similar to GCSE. The examination is closed book and you'll be expected to draw across a variety of poems in your response, whilst also considering tragic links to Death of a Salesman. Okay, so here in this question, it's not comparative answer, so you won't be comparing exactly the poetry of Keats with Death of a Salesman, but you will be answering the question in relation to the 2 texts. So that's why those are sort of found together in section C. Death of a Salesman then. Arthur Miller's play Death of a Salesman addresses loss of identity and a man's inability to accept change within himself and society. The play is a montage of memories, dreams, confrontations and arguments, all of which make up the last 24 hours of Willy Loman's life. So the exploration of this play is similar to GCSE in that you will be analysing the methods that the playwright uses to communicate their ideas. However, there is more of a focus on interpreting the play through the lens of the tragic genre, whilst also considering Keats. This examination is closed book. So again, let's look here. William Blake, Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. William Blake was a radical visionary who was writing in the late 18th and early 19th century. This was a time when swathes of Europe were ravaged by revolution and industrial progress, saw many people migrating from a previous agricultural lifestyle to one of exploitation and poverty in the growing cities and towns. Blake's belief was that this changing industrialised world was restricting human freedom and imagination, and the 48 poems in the collection illustrate both his fears and his protest. Whilst the style of analysis is similar to GCSE, the examination is open book and you'll be expected to draw across a variety of poems in your response. Okay, so moving on then. So to year 13. So yeah, you've seen there then, if we just go back one more slide. So that's your overview of everything that you will study in year 12. And this is what you'll study that we spoke about at the beginning, what you'll study in year 13. Finally, before I sign off, I wanted to leave you with this quote by Ray Bradbury. This quote is taken from the dystopian novel Fahrenheit 451. There are worse crimes than burning books. One of them is not reading them. So as you think about this course, well, that first part definitely links to the social and political protest side of the course and ideas of state control and censorship. But then sort of tongue-in-cheek, but also serious, the idea of not reading books as you consider whether this course is for you or not. So if you look as well in the bridging unit at advice from current year 12s, a lot of the advice that they offer is around reading ahead of time, getting your text in the summer before you start in year 12, and just keeping up with reading as you go along and really having an enjoyment of it. There's a much bigger expectation for independent reading at A level than GCSE. So as you make your decision, do take time to think about, are you a student that enjoys reading? Are you prepared to read a lot, and do you enjoy it? And if the answer to that question is yes, then this is a fantastic course and one that I hope that you take and really enjoy. Okay.